She screamed at me in that restaurant. Everyone heard it. Everyone saw me walk away. But what I found when I got home that night made the humiliation feel like a warm-up. Some secrets aren't meant to stay hidden, and some discoveries make you realize you're not paranoid. You're in danger. My name is Braden Foster. I'm 45 years old, and for the past 12 years, I've worked as a warehouse supervisor for Meridian Logistics in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's not glamorous work, but it's honest. I manage inventory, coordinate shipments, make sure nothing gets lost or stolen. I'm good at what I do. People respect me at work. At least, they used to respect me at home, too. I met Cassidy 7 years ago at a company barbecue. She'd just been hired as a logistics coordinator, working in the office while I handled the warehouse floor. She was 29, beautiful in that effortless way some women have, and she had a daughter from a previous relationship. Olivia was 2 years old then, with blonde curls and her mother's green eyes. Cassidy told me her ex had bailed when Olivia was 6 months old, just vanished, left her to raise a baby alone while finishing her degree. I fell hard, maybe too hard. Here was this strong woman juggling motherhood and career, and she chose me. Plain old Braden Foster, the guy who wore steel-toed boots to work and had grease under his fingernails. My friends warned me about dating a coworker. My older sister Patricia pulled me aside at Thanksgiving that year and said, "Just be careful. Something feels off about her." But I didn't listen. I was in love with the idea of being needed. We got married 2 years later. Small ceremony, just immediate family and a few friends. Olivia was my flower girl. She called me Braden back then, shy and unsure. It took another year before she started calling me Dad, and when she did, I thought I'd finally gotten everything right. I should have paid attention to the small things. How Cassidy never wanted me to touch her in public. How she'd pull away if I tried to hold her hand to the grocery store or put my arm around her at church. "I'm not big on PDA," she'd say, laughing it off. I told myself it was just her personality, that not everyone needed to broadcast their love. But it wasn't just the lack of affection. It was the way she looked at her phone constantly, always angling the screen away from me. The way she'd schedule girls' nights 3 times a week and come home smelling like cologne that definitely wasn't hers. The way our joint savings account kept getting smaller, $50 here, $80 there, always with vague explanations about work clothes or Olivia's school stuff. I convinced myself I was being paranoid, jealous. My dad used to say, "A man who doesn't trust his wife has already lost her." So I buried my doubts and played the role of the supportive husband. Then came that night at Romano's, our anniversary. 5 years married. Cassidy picked the restaurant, same as always. I showed up 10 minutes early, wearing the navy blazer she'd bought me last Christmas. I even got a fresh haircut that afternoon. When she arrived 20 minutes late, she looked me up and down with this expression I'd never seen before, something between disgust and amusement. We barely spoke during dinner. She kept texting someone, smiling at her screen. When I reached across the table to touch her hand, just to feel connected to my own wife, she jerked away like I'd burned her. "Don't touch me," she hissed. Then louder, so the tables around us could hear, "You look ridiculous." The restaurant went quiet. Forks stopped moving. Conversations died. I felt every pair of eyes in that room land on me. And for the first time in 5 years, I saw her clearly. Not the woman I'd married. Not the mother I'd watched raise Olivia with such care. I saw someone who genuinely despised me. I stood up slowly, pulled 3 20s from my wallet, and dropped them on the table. Then I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You're not worth this." The walk to my truck felt like miles. My hand shook so bad I could barely get the key in the ignition. But I didn't cry. Not yet. Because somewhere in the back of my mind, a voice whispered that this was just the beginning, that the real nightmare was still waiting at home. I had no idea how right that voice was. I didn't go straight home after the restaurant. Instead, I drove to the lake where my dad used to take me fishing when I was a kid. Sat in my truck for 2 hours, staring at the water, trying to figure out when my life had turned into someone else's bad dream. The thing about being humiliated in public is that it strips away all the excuses you've been feeding yourself. Every "she's just stressed" and "I'm probably overreacting" vanished the moment she sneered at me in front of strangers. You can't unsee contempt like that. It burns itself into your memory. When I finally pulled into our driveway around 11, the house was dark except for the bedroom light. Cassidy's car sat in its usual spot. Part of me expected her to be waiting up, maybe even apologetic. But I knew better. Women who apologize don't humiliate their husbands in restaurants. I came in through the garage quiet as I could. The living room was empty. Olivia's backpack sat by the stairs, her homework spread across the coffee table. She must have been at her friend Emma's house during our anniversary dinner. At least she hadn't witnessed that disaster. I heard water running upstairs. Cassidy was in the shower. My body moved on autopilot, climbing the stairs, walking past the bathroom where steam crept under the door. I went straight to our bedroom and stood there, my heart hammering so hard I thought my ribs might split. "Do it," a voice in my head whispered. "Stop being a coward and look." Our dresser had 6 drawers. The bottom left one was hers, supposedly full of old sweaters and winter scarves she never wore. I'd never had a reason to open it. Never wanted to violate her privacy like some paranoid husband in a bad movie. But tonight, something was different. Tonight, I was done pretending. I pulled the drawer open. Sweaters on top, just like she said. But underneath, wrapped in a purple scarf, was a phone. Not her regular iPhone with a damaged screen protector. This one was sleek, black Android. No case. No scratches. It looked brand new. My hand shook as I pressed the power button. The screen lit up. No passcode. No fingerprint lock. Just a blank home screen with 3 apps. Messages, photos, and a calendar app. I tapped photos first. That was my mistake. Some things, once you see them, you can't unscrub from your brain. The first picture was Cassidy in a hotel room I didn't recognize. She wore red lingerie I'd never seen. Her smile was different, genuine, the kind of smile I hadn't seen directed at me in years. The next photo was worse. Her and a man. Cole Ashford, our district manager. The guy who'd gotten promoted 6 months ago and loved reminding everyone he was the youngest DM in company history. I scrolled faster. Different hotels. Different cities. Charlotte, Raleigh, Greensboro. Business trips she told me about. Conferences she needed to attend. Overnight stays because it's too far to drive back. Then I found the videos. 3 of them. I didn't watch past the first 10 seconds. Didn't need to. The soundtrack alone, her laughter mixed with his voice, saying, "You're so much better than him," told me everything. The shower shut off. I had maybe 2 minutes before she came out. I opened the Messages app. Hundreds of texts between her and Cole. I scrolled to the most recent ones from earlier tonight, right before our anniversary dinner. "Cole, you sure you want to go through with this? Seems cruel even for you." "Cassidy, he needs to know his place. I'm tired of pretending." "Cole, what if he makes a scene?" "Cassidy, he's too weak. Trust me, too weak." Those 2 words hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken. Because part of me knew she was right. I'd been weak, too understanding, too forgiving, too desperate to keep a woman who'd stopped wanting me months, maybe years ago. I heard the bathroom door open. Steam billowed into the hallway. I slipped the phone back into the drawer, covered it with the scarves, and closed it quietly. Then I walked to the guest room and locked the door behind me. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, planning my next move. Because if Cassidy thought I was too weak to fight back, she was about to learn how wrong she was. Morning came too fast. I heard Cassidy moving around the bedroom at 6:30, getting ready for work like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't destroyed our marriage in front of a restaurant full of strangers 12 hours ago. The guest room door was still locked. She didn't knock. I waited until I heard her car pull out of the driveway before I moved. Then I got up, showered, and made myself think like a strategist instead of a wounded husband. Emotions were a luxury I couldn't afford right now. First call was to my bank. I set up a new checking account. Individual, my name only. Had my paycheck direct deposit switched over effective immediately. The woman on the phone asked if everything was all right. I told her I was just separating finances for tax purposes. She didn't push. Second call was to Jerry McCall, a divorce attorney my buddy from the warehouse had used 2 years ago. Jerry's office could see me at 2 o'clock. I took a personal day from work. Told my supervisor I had a medical appointment. Not exactly a lie. My marriage was dying, and I needed a specialist. Jerry's office was in a strip mall between a tax service and a nail salon. Not fancy, but I wasn't looking for fancy. I was looking for someone who'd help me survive this without losing everything I'd worked for. Jerry was mid-50s, gray beard, Looked like he'd seen every kind of marital disaster imaginable. I laid it all out. The restaurant humiliation, the second phone, the photos and videos, the text calling me weak. He listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he sat back and said, "All right, here's what we're going to do. First, you need to document everything. Take photos of that phone before she realizes you found it. Screenshot the messages, the pictures, everything. Email them to yourself from an account she doesn't know about. Second, we freeze the joint accounts. Not empty them, freeze them. Shows the court you're being fair. Third, you file first. Control the narrative." "What about Olivia?" I asked. The kid wasn't mine biologically, but I'd raised her for 5 years. She called me Dad. Jerry's expression softened. "That's tricky. You're not her legal parent. But if you want to pursue visitation rights, we can argue for it based on established relationship. Courts sometimes grant it if it's in the child's best interest." I left Jerry's office with a plan and a retainer agreement. $3,000 up front. Worth every penny if it meant I didn't get destroyed in the divorce. When I got home, Cassidy's car was already in the driveway. She was early. My stomach tightened, but I kept my face neutral as I walked inside. She was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with her arms crossed. "We need to talk," Cassidy announced. I set my keys down. "About what?" "About last night. About you embarrassing me in front of people." I almost laughed. She was trying to flip this on me. Classic. "I embarrassed you." My voice stayed calm, measured. "That's interesting. You walked out on our anniversary dinner, Braden. Made me look like some kind of villain." I stepped closer, looked her right in the eye. "You told me not to touch you. Call me ridiculous. In front of everyone. But sure, I'm the problem." She opened her mouth to respond, but I wasn't done. "I'm sleeping in the guest room from now on, and we're going to need to have a real conversation soon. But not tonight." Then I walked upstairs before she could say another word. Behind me, I heard her say something under her breath, but I didn't turn around. I had evidence to photograph. 2 days later, my sister Patricia called. Said she needed to see me. Wouldn't say why, just that it was important. We agreed to meet at her house Saturday afternoon, while her husband Tom took their kids to soccer practice. I should have known something was wrong when I pulled up and saw her pacing on the front porch. Patricia didn't pace. She was the calm one in the family, the one who kept it together when her dad died, the one who talked me down from bad decisions more times than I could count. "Hey," I said, climbing out of my truck. "What's going on?" She looked at me with eyes that were red-rimmed and tired. "Come inside. We need to talk." The living room was spotless like always, but Patricia didn't offer coffee or sit down. She just stood there, wringing her hands, and for the first time in my adult life, I saw my older sister look scared. "Tricia, you're freaking me out." "What is it?" She took a breath. "It's about Dad, and Mom, and you." My stomach dropped. "What about them?" "Do you remember Robert Connolly? Dad's business partner from back in the day." I searched my memory. Vaguely. The guy who died in that car accident when I was like 8 or 9. "Yeah, him." She walked to a drawer in the side table, pulled out an envelope. Old, yellowed at the edges. She handed it to me. Inside was a DNA test result. My name, and a man named Robert Connolly listed as biological father. Probability, 99.97%. The paper shook in my hands. "What is this?" "Mom did that test 20 years ago, after Dad died. She told me on her deathbed, made me promise never to tell you. Said it would destroy Dad's memory. That he'd raise you knowing you weren't his biological son, and he'd loved you anyway." I couldn't breathe. The room tilted. "You've known for 15 years. My voice came out strangled. 15 years, Patricia." She made me swear, Braden. "I was trying to protect you." "From what?" "The truth." Tears streamed down her face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But watching what Cassidy's doing to you, seeing you torn apart by lies, I couldn't keep lying to you too. You deserve to know." I sat down hard on the couch. My father, the man who taught me to fish, who came to every school play, who told me he was proud of me the day I got promoted to supervisor, wasn't my father. And my mother, who I'd thought was some kind of saint, had carried on an affair with his business partner. And my sister had known. Had looked me in the eye at Christmas dinners and birthday parties and family gatherings for 15 years, and said nothing. "Get out," I said quietly. "Braden." I said get out. She left. The front door closed behind her, and I sat there alone, holding the test results, realizing I'd lost my wife, my father, and my sister all in the same week. I spent Sunday morning doing something I never thought I'd do. I photographed my wife's secret phone. Every text message, every photo, every video. 3 hours of sitting in the guest room with my own phone, capturing evidence of her betrayal in case she decided to delete it all. The messages between Cassidy and Cole went back 11 months. Almost a full year of lies. Planning hotel meetups, laughing about me, discussing their future together. One exchange from March stood out. Cassidy, I think I'm going to tell him I want to try for a baby. Keep him distracted. Cole, you're evil. I love it. Cassidy, he's been asking about it for 2 years. Might as well use it to buy us more time. My hand shook reading that. She'd been stringing me along with the promise of a family while planning her exit. Every conversation about having a child, every time she said, maybe next year, was calculated manipulation. But the worst discovery was in her calendar app. She'd been tracking something labeled insurance policy. I clicked on it. It was a life insurance policy. On me. For $750,000. The beneficiary? Cassidy Foster. The data was opened 3 months ago, right after Cole got promoted to district manager. I took screenshots of everything. Then I found a folder on her phone labeled backup plans. Inside were PDFs. One was titled Accidental Death Benefits. Another was titled Spousal Rights in North Carolina. My blood ran cold. I forwarded everything to the email account I'd created specifically for this, then deleted the sent messages from her phone. She'd never know I'd been there. Monday morning, I met with Jerry again. Showed him everything. The messages, the photos, the insurance policy, the suspicious documents. His face went from professional to genuinely concerned. Braden, this is serious, Jerry said, his lawyer voice dropping. I need to ask you something directly. Do you feel safe in your home? What do you mean? This insurance policy, combined with these documents about accidental death, raises red flags. Has she done anything unusual? Changed your medications? Asked you to go somewhere isolated? I thought back. 2 weeks ago, Cassidy had suggested we take a weekend trip to the mountains. Just us. Said we needed to reconnect. I've been too busy with work to go. Told her maybe next month. Had that been no, I couldn't let myself go there. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm not taking any chances. Jerry nodded. Good. Here's what we do. We file tomorrow. Emergency hearing. Get a restraining order, if necessary. And you need to tell someone you trust about this. Your sister, a friend, someone. If anything happens to you, they need to know what you suspected. That evening, I called my buddy Derek from work. Told him everything. The affair, the insurance policy, the whole nightmare. He listened without interrupting. Stay at my place, Derek offered when I finished. Seriously, man. Pack a bag. You can crash in the spare room until this blows over. I can't just abandon my house. Your house isn't worth your life. Come on. He had a point. I packed enough clothes for a week, grabbed my laptop and the backup drive with all the evidence, and drove to Derek's place across town. Left a note for Cassidy on the kitchen counter. Staying with a friend. Don't contact me. Short. Simple. No explanation needed. That night, sleeping in Derek's spare room, I realized something. I wasn't scared anymore. I was angry. Cassidy had tried to break me, humiliate me, maybe even worse. But I was still standing, and I was going to make sure she faced consequences for every lie she told. Tuesday morning, Jerry filed the divorce papers. By noon, Cassidy had been served at work. I knew because my phone started blowing up with texts and calls from her. I ignored every single one. The paperwork was thorough. Irreconcilable differences. Request for equitable distribution of assets. Evidence of infidelity attached. Motion to freeze joint bank accounts pending divorce proceedings. And a request for the life insurance policy to be investigated. Jerry had also included something I hadn't expected. A request for visitation rights with Olivia. He'd warned me it was a long shot, but said judges sometimes granted it when a step-parent had been actively involved in raising a child for several years. At 3 o'clock, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. You son of a... Cassidy's voice came through, shaking with rage. You filed for divorce? After everything I've done for you? Everything you've done for me? I kept my voice level. You mean sleeping with my boss? Spending our money on hotel rooms? Taking out an insurance policy on my life without telling me? Silence. Then, quieter. You went through my phone. Yeah, I did. And I found a lot more than just pictures, Cassidy. You have no idea what you've done, she said, and I could hear something dangerous in her voice. Cole is going to make your life miserable at work. You think you can just humiliate me and walk away. Cole can try whatever he wants, but he's your problem now, not mine. She hung up. 5 minutes later, Jerry called. Her lawyer just contacted me. Margaret Phillips. She's good, but she's also smart. She knows the insurance policy looks bad. She's proposing mediation. Absolutely not. We're going to court. Braden, mediation might actually work in your favor here. We have leverage. Strong leverage. She knows if this goes to trial, that insurance policy becomes public record. Her reputation, her job, everything gets exposed. I thought about it. What would mediation get me? Potentially, the house, your retirement accounts. And she walks away without contesting anything. Clean break. What about Olivia? Jerry hesitated. That's harder. But if Cassidy's desperate to keep this quiet, she might agree to supervise visitation. It's not much, but it's something. I agreed to mediation. Not because I wanted to make things easy for Cassidy, but because I wanted this over. I wanted to move on with my life. The mediation was scheduled for the following week. In the meantime, Jerry advised me to stay away from the house, avoid contact with Cassidy, and definitely avoid any interaction with Cole Ashford at work. That last part proved impossible. Wednesday morning, I got called into the office of our regional operations manager, Sandra Price. Cole was already there, sitting with his arms crossed, looking smug. Braden, have a seat, Sandra said, her voice tight. She was in her 50s, no nonsense, and I'd always respected her. I'm going to be direct. Cole has filed a complaint alleging you've been creating a hostile work environment. I stared at Cole. A hostile work environment? I haven't even spoken to him in 2 weeks. That's not true. Cole jumped in, his voice smooth. You've been giving me threatening looks, making other employees uncomfortable with your anger issues. Anger issues? I turned to Sandra. This is because I'm divorcing my wife. Cole's been having an affair with her for almost a year. He's trying to get me fired, so I look bad in divorce court. Sandra's expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition, maybe. Do you have proof of this affair? Yes, ma'am. Photos, text messages, everything. And I'll provide it to HR if necessary. Cole's smug expression faltered. Sandra looked between us. All right. Cole, you're dismissed. Braden, stay. After Cole left, Sandra leaned back in her chair. Is this going to become a legal problem for the company? No, ma'am. I'm handling it privately. But if Cole keeps trying to interfere with my job, I'll have my attorney file a harassment complaint. She nodded slowly. Understood. Get back to work. And Braden, document everything. Every interaction with Cole. Every email. Everything. Yes, ma'am. I left her office feeling something close to victory. Cole had tried to ambush me, and it had backfired. Sandra was too smart to fall for his games. But I knew this was just the beginning. Cole and Cassidy were going to fight dirty, and I needed to be ready for whatever came next. The mediation took place in a conference room at Jerry's law office. Neutral territory. Cassidy arrived with her attorney, Margaret Phillips, a sharp-looking woman in her 50s who'd probably seen every divorce trick in the book. Cassidy wouldn't look at me. Good. I didn't want to see her face anyway. We sat on opposite sides of a long table. Jerry laid out our position first. Evidence of the affair. The insurance policy. The suspicious documents. Financial records showing Cassidy had drained nearly $15,000 from our joint account over the past year on business trips that were really hotel rooms with Cole. Margaret tried to downplay it. Said the insurance policy was a legitimate financial planning decision. That the affair, while regrettable, didn't impact the division of assets. That Cassidy deserved half of everything because she'd been a supportive spouse. Jerry didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. He just slid a folder across the table. Page 7. Text messages between your client and Cole Ashford discussing accidental death benefits. Page 12. Calendar entries labeled insurance policy with notes about making sure Braden went on that mountain trip alone. Margaret's face went pale as she read. She leaned over and whispered something to Cassidy. Cassidy's jaw tightened, but she nodded. My client is willing to negotiate, Margaret finally said. The negotiation took 3 hours. Back and forth. What about the house? What about retirement accounts? What about Olivia? That last one was the hardest. Jerry had prepared me. told me I probably wouldn't get much since I wasn't Olivia's biological or adoptive father. But I had to try. My client has been Olivia's primary father figure for 5 years, Jerry argued, his voice steady. He's attended every parent-teacher conference, every school play, every soccer game. The child calls him dad. Severing that relationship would be traumatic for her. Margaret countered, my client is the biological mother. She has full legal custody. Mr. Foster has no parental rights. Then let's create them, Jerry said. Supervised visitation. Once a month. The child's therapist can confirm whether it's beneficial. If it's not, we revisit in 6 months. Cassidy whispered something to Margaret. Margaret nodded and said, once a month. 2 hours. Supervised by a neutral third party. Non-negotiable. It wasn't enough. Would never be enough. But it was something. By the end, we'd hammered out an agreement. I kept the house, my retirement accounts, my truck. She got her car and half of what was left in our joint savings, about $8,000. The life insurance policy would be canceled, the premiums refunded, and I get to see Olivia once a month. There's one more condition, Jerry added. Cole Ashford stays away from Braden at work. No direct contact, no interference. If he violates that, we file a restraining order. Margaret looked at Cassidy. Cassidy nodded, her expression bitter. We signed the papers that afternoon. Just like that, my marriage was over. No dramatic courtroom scene. No judge banging a gavel. Just signatures on paper and a mediator's stamp. As we left, Cassidy finally spoke to me. I hope you're happy. I stopped and turned to face her. Happy? You try to humiliate me. Steal from me. Maybe worse. And you're asking if I'm happy. I never meant. Yes, you did. You meant every bit of it. But here's the thing, Cassidy. I'm still standing. And you? You're stuck with Cole Ashford, a man who convinced you to betray your husband and put an insurance policy on his life. Good luck with that. I walked away before she could respond. Outside, the North Carolina sun was shining. The air felt cleaner somehow. Lighter. Jerry caught up with me in the parking lot. You did good in there, Braden. Kept your cool. That's what wins these things. Thanks for everything, Jerry. One piece of advice. Stay away from that house for a few days. Let her move her stuff out. Once she's gone, change the locks. Start fresh. I took his advice. Stayed at Derek's place for another week while Cassidy cleared out her belongings. When I finally went back home, the house felt empty but mine. The first supervised visit with Olivia happened 2 weeks later at a family therapy center. The supervisor was a woman named Rachel, mid-40s, kind eyes, who explained that she'd be in the room the entire time to ensure everything stayed appropriate. Olivia came in holding Cassidy's hand. When she saw me, her face lit up. Dad! She let go of her mother and ran to me. I knelt down and hugged her, feeling her small arms wrap around my neck. Hey, kiddo. I missed you. I missed you too. Mommy said you went away. Are you back now? I looked at Cassidy over Olivia's shoulder. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't go away, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups need to live in different houses. But I'm still your dad, okay? She pulled back and looked at me with those serious green eyes. Mommy said you and her aren't married anymore. Is that true? Kids were too smart for their own good. Yeah, that's true. But that doesn't change how I feel about you. We spent the next 2 hours playing board games and talking about school. Olivia told me about her new friend Madison, about how she got an A on her spelling test, about how she wanted to try karate. Normal kid stuff. Stuff that reminded me what I'd lost. But then, as the session was ending, Olivia said something that made my blood freeze. Dad, can I tell you a secret? I glanced at Rachel, who nodded. Of course, kiddo. Olivia leaned in close and whispered. I saw Mommy with Uncle Cole one time. They were kissing. In our kitchen. I told Mommy I saw, and she said I was making up stories. But I wasn't. I saw them. My heart shattered. This 9-year-old girl had carried that secret, been told by her own mother that she was a liar. When was this, Olivia? A long time ago, before you moved out. I got scared because Mommy looked mad when I told her. Rachel stepped forward gently. Olivia, honey, can I talk to your dad for a minute? Olivia nodded and went to color at a table in the corner. Rachel pulled me aside. That's significant information, she said quietly. A parent gaslighting a child about what they witnessed is concerning. I'm required to document this. It could affect custody arrangements. What does that mean? It means I'll be recommending increased visitation and possibly family therapy for Olivia with a trauma specialist. This child has been carrying a burden she shouldn't have to carry. When the session ended and Cassidy came to pick up Olivia, Rachel pulled her aside. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I saw Cassidy's face go from confused to defensive to angry. She left with Olivia without saying goodbye to me. That night, Jerry called. I heard from the mediator. The supervised visitation report was very favorable. They're recommending we expand to twice a month, for hours each. Cassidy's attorney isn't fighting it. Why not? Because fighting it would mean explaining why her daughter felt the need to lie about witnessing the affair. It makes Cassidy look worse. She's cutting her losses. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt like maybe, just maybe, something was going right. Not perfect. Not what I'd hoped for when I married Cassidy 7 years ago. But better than nothing. And for now, better than nothing was enough. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, the company held its annual holiday banquet. I almost didn't go. The thought of seeing Cassidy and Cole in the same room made my stomach turn. But Derek convinced me otherwise. You've got nothing to hide, he said. They're the ones who should be ashamed. Go. Hold your head high. The banquet was at the Marriott downtown. 200 employees, management, their spouses. I wore the same navy blazer from that disaster anniversary dinner, but this time it felt different. Like armor instead of costume. Cassidy was there with Cole. They sat at a table near the back, trying to be inconspicuous. Didn't work. Everyone knew. Word had spread through the warehouse like wildfire. Affair. Insurance policy. Divorce. The rumor mill had been working overtime. I sat with Derek and a few guys from my shift. Dinner was served. Speeches were made. Sandra Price gave a presentation about quarterly performance. Everything was normal until dessert arrived. That's when Cole decided to make his move. He walked over to our table, Cassidy trailing behind him looking uncomfortable. Braden, Cole said, his voice loud enough to carry. I think we should clear the air. Be professional about this. I looked up at him. There's nothing to clear. We're divorced. It's done. I just think it's important that everyone knows this wasn't personal. Just two people who fell in love. The table went quiet. Derek's hand landed on my shoulder, warning me to stay calm. But I didn't need the warning. I wasn't that man anymore. I stood up slowly. Looked Cole right in the eye. You're right. It wasn't personal. You sleeping with my wife in hotels I paid for wasn't personal. Her taking out a life insurance policy on me while planning mountain trips wasn't personal. You threatening my job wasn't personal. It was just business, right? Cole's face went red. That's not. No. Let me finish. I continued, my voice steady but carrying across the room. Conversations at nearby tables stopped. You want everyone to know you fell in love? Fine. But make sure they know the whole story. How you convinced a married woman to betray her husband. How you tried to get me fired when I found out. How you're both so desperate to look like victims that you showed up here tonight thinking people would take your side. Cassidy touched Cole's arm. Let's just go, she whispered. But Cole's ego wouldn't let him walk away. You're just bitter because she chose someone better. I smiled. Actually smiled. Better? You're welcome to each other. But here's something to think about, Cole. If she cheated with you, she'll cheat on you. And when she does, remember this conversation. I sat back down. Cole stood there for another few seconds, looking like he wanted to say something else, but couldn't find the words. Finally, he turned and walked away, Cassidy following. The table erupted. Derek clapped me on the back. The other guys were grinning. And from the table next to us, Sandra Price gave me the smallest nod of approval. I didn't feel victorious. Didn't feel anything but relief that it was finally over. The lies. The pretending. The wondering if I was crazy for suspecting what I knew in my gut was true. When I left that night, I walked past their table. Neither of them looked at me, and I realized something important. They didn't matter anymore. None of it mattered. I was free. 18 months after the divorce, I barely recognized my life. In the best way possible. The house was fully mine now, refinanced in my name only. I'd repainted the bedroom, replaced furniture that reminded me of Cassidy, turned the guest room into a proper space for Olivia's overnight visits. Because after that first supervised session where she told Rachel about witnessing the affair, things had changed. The therapist's recommendation for increased visitation had turned into every other weekend. Then weekends plus one weeknight dinner. Cassidy had fought it at first, but her attorney advised against it. The more she resisted, the worse she looked. Olivia was 10 now, doing well in school, playing soccer in a youth league I'd sign her up for. She still called me Dad, and every time she did, it felt like winning a small victory. I'd even started dating again. Nothing serious yet. A woman named Andrea I'd met at one of Olivia's soccer games. She was a teacher, divorced, no kids. We'd gone out 5 or 6 times. Took things slow. She knew my history, knew I had baggage, and didn't run away. That was something. Work was better too. I'd been promoted to operations manager 6 months ago, overseeing 3 warehouse locations instead of 1. Better pay, more responsibility, respect from people who'd watched me survive the worst year of my life with dignity. Patricia and I had slowly rebuilt our relationship. It took time, a lot of long conversations, some arguing, some crying, but eventually I understood. She'd been protecting me in the only way she knew how, even if it was the wrong way. Our father, biological or not, had raised me with love. That was what mattered. One Saturday afternoon, I was in the garage working on my truck when Olivia came out holding her phone. "Dad, Mom wants to talk to you," she said, handing me the device. I wiped my hands on a rag and took the phone. "Yeah, Braden." Cassidy's voice was different, smaller somehow. "I want to tell you before Olivia does. Cole and I broke up." I waited, didn't say anything. "You were right," she continued, "about everything. He started seeing someone else, someone from his new job. I caught them together last month. I'm sorry that happened to you," I said, and I meant it. Not because I still cared about her romantically, but because no one deserved that pain. I was terrible to you. I know that now, and I'm sorry. For everything. Apology accepted. But Cassidy, I've moved on. I hope you can too. I know, and I'm glad. You deserve to be happy. We hung up. I handed the phone back to Olivia. "Is Mom okay?" she asked. "She will be. People are resilient. They survive things they don't think they can. Like you did." I pulled her into a hug. "Yeah, kiddo. Like I did." That evening, after Olivia went back to her mother's house, I sat on the back deck with a beer and watched the sun set. Thought about the man I'd been 2 years ago. The one who accepted crumbs of affection and convinced himself it was enough. The one who ignored red flags because he was terrified of being alone. That man was gone. In his place was someone stronger. Someone who knew his worth. Someone who wouldn't settle for less than he deserved ever again. My phone buzzed. Text from Andrea. "Dinner tomorrow? My treat this time." I smiled and texted back. "Sounds perfect." Life wasn't perfect. Still had hard days. Still missed the family I thought I was building with Cassidy. But those moments were fewer now, replaced by good days. Days with Olivia. Days building something real with Andrea. Days where I looked in the mirror and liked the man staring back. I'd survived betrayal. Survived heartbreak. Survived the complete destruction of everything I thought my life would be. And somehow, I'd come out the other side better for it.